about the money, it's the principle. Gotta watch who you revere, who you listen to. I speak the Easter, so my flow medicinal. And I buried the old man, now I'm invincible. Gotta be wise in judgment, it's critical. Either couple with this brotherhood or you'll get ridiculed. The greatest man, the greatest servant, I kill for who I minister to. And I'm going war, nigga, win or lose. Hey, I was forged from the fire, torn from the liar. If hand join in hand, you get caught up in the crossfire. Become a casualty of chance. I'm in my stance, still in hand, ready to swing it like a lance. If the enemy advance, I'ma enhance. Had the benefit of the doubt, he never had a chance. Hey, this the shit that they beg for, that burned down the wicked Judge Dredd flow. Bitch, I am the law. Dog faced, prepared for war.
I'm gon' war till the day I'm done. Number one till the day I'm done. I'ma grind till the day is done. I'ma war till the day I'm done. They can't stop me. Nothing new up under the sun. I'm gon' war till the day I'm done. Number one till the day I'm done. I'ma grind till the day is done. I'ma war till the day I'm done. They can't stop me. Nothing new up under the sun.
I see what they say. Never envy a carnal man. Claim they real, they actions don't match what they saying. I got the upper hand, what you don't understand, youngin'. I'd rather bleed than concede, now that's saying something. These niggas cunning, they want my power, they never take it from me. Hey, for that money, I heard you assisted. They can't go out like that, they'll have to 86 me.
Shalom, Yahweh Shem Shai Barakatah. Shalom, Yahweh Shema Thunba Shem Yahweh Shai. We are the Isupk under Commanding General Yohana that started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969, here to teach the truth of the Bible for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians out there, that they are the real Israelites that the Bible speaks of. And because of that, they have a specific God that they need to worship. But our enemies out here have been deceiving us with their gods and have been tricking us into falling for their idols and things as such. We just had the weekend of the Passover, a glorious Passover event, hosted by, of course, the Isupk under Commanding General Yohana. So big ups to the brothers and sisters that made it out there this past week. It's been glorious, okay? Giving us a chance to come back to our true heritage and to rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord and keep the commandments that the Most High gave us back in the day, okay? Because right now we have a lot of our brothers and sisters out here that are still lost in the world that are worshiping other gods, and they don't know that they are. They go to church and they believe that they're following the Bible when in fact they're worshiping other gods. But they're clothed as Christianity, and Christianity in itself is confusion. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you the foundation of how to destroy those demons and, of course, those deities that don't even exist. See, and that's the thing about these gods. When you always hear about gods of the other nations, gods of the heathens, they don't exist. But because of the belief that's so strong in the minds of the people across the world, that it affects the entire world to the point where it's almost as if it does exist, even though it doesn't. It's vain and it's nothingness. And it's up to us to destroy those things, to come back to our real power. And in doing so, will weaken the nations round about us that have us under their control. You understand? And of course, the Isupk has been doing this since 1969, but we've seen it more and more prevalent right in our faces. And it is our job in the school to show you just how in your face their gods are. And most of the time, you don't even know that it's happening. So let's begin with the scriptures. Of course, if you are tuning into class, we do advise that you bring your notepad, all right, your King James Bible, your Apocrypha, okay, if your King James Bible doesn't have an Apocrypha in it, or of course your phone, you can of course search, use different apps with King James Bible so you can keep up with us, and also write down the scriptures that we're going over today. It's very imperative that you write these scriptures down because they are very pinpoint accurate to what you see going on in the world today, and is important to have in your repertoire of scriptures so that you can slay these gods when they come across you, when they're enticing you. You understand? And without the scriptures, you won't even be able to recognize where these gods are coming at and influencing your children, influencing your household and your way of life. You understand? And so we got to begin with, of course, Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Let's go ahead and get Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. And I got the young man reading for me. All right, so we're going to wait till he gets it. But everybody go ahead and pull Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Of course, it's in the Old Testament. You can find it after the book of Daniel, which is after the book of Ezekiel. You see that one over there?
You said chapter 6?
Yeah, Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Go ahead and read the first part of that precept whenever you're ready. And let them know where you're at right before you read it.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
God says what?
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Who are God's people? Hold on a second. Because the Isupk, we don't read out of context. We read the truth. Let's go up to verse 1 real quick just to remind ourselves on who is being addressed here. You understand? Hosea chapter 4, verse 1. Let's read that real quick.
Hosea chapter 4, Hosea chapter 4, verse 1.
Go ahead.
Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel.
Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. Go ahead.
For the Lord hath a
Controversy
with the inhabitants of the land.
That's right.
Because there is no truth, no mercy, no knowledge of the God in the land.
This is absolutely what you see across the world right now. There is no mercy right now to the Black and Hispanic man. We're putting cages at the borders while the Ukrainians get fed with open arms brought across the border. You understand? There is no knowledge of God in our land because we are serving other nations and their deities and not the God of the Bible. In fact, when you go to the Christian church, rarely do you even get enough scriptures to get a full lesson that you're supposed to have learned when you go to the church. And so people go to church thirsting for the word and they don't get it. It's almost like there's a drought going on and the word is not being heard. And because of this, the Most High has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. Why? Because there is no truth. There is no mercy. There is no knowledge of the Most High in the land. And now we understand that when God says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, he's talking about Israel. Okay, that's why we jumped up to verse 1. Let's go back to verse 6. Baba Kasha. And we're going to read verse 6 now with the context of knowing who this is being addressed to. Okay, go ahead. Verse 6.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 6.
Go ahead.
My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
All right, yeah, because the Most High's people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Read on.
Because thou hast rejected knowledge.
Because we reject knowledge. We reject God's knowledge because we refuse to open up the book. We refuse to open. When you close this book and you set this down and you go on about your day, your week, with no regard to the scriptures, you are rejecting the knowledge of the Most High. But when you come to class, you have the opportunity to open that book. You have the opportunity to accept the knowledge of the Most High, because that is what's going to bring you out of this hell. And more importantly, and especially a class like this one, it's going to allow you to identify these false gods that are being put in our face every single day, with the cultures, with the traditions of men that are out here in the world that are bringing us to follow their way of life instead of God's way of life. Well, because we have rejected God's knowledge, read on.
I will also reject thee.
That God's going to reject us as well. Keep going.
That thou shalt be no priest to me.
That's why your typical everyday Christian is not a priest. That's why they're clean shaven. That's why they're dressing with skinny jeans. You understand? That's why they listening to mumble rap. That's why they watching all manner of wickedness online, from porn, all sorts of things that keep their mind polluted. They're not priests of the Most High. They rejected the knowledge of the Most High. You come into this school, you get your mind cleaned up. And you come into the school and you get your mind healed. And then ultimately, when you accept the Most High's knowledge, then maybe perhaps you could be a priest to him. But what we're reading about right here in the nation of Israel, you Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians out there in the world that do not have God's knowledge, that you are not a priest to the Most High. Keep going. Read on.
Seeing thou hast forgotten the laws or the law of thy God,
Mm-hmm.
I will also forget the children.
And that's the thing that you got to be aware of too, because if there's anything that keeps a mother, anything that keeps a father ambitious, that gives them drive, it's their children. But because without the knowledge of the Most High, he's not only going to forget you, he's going to forget your children too. And he's letting you know that that's a direct consequence of forgetting his law and forsaking his knowledge. You understand? Part of that knowledge is being able to detect and identify when the other nations are trying to influence your children's minds as well. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead and drop that. Let's get Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16. All right. Again, these are the introductory scriptures. These scriptures are very basic, good scriptures generally that we use in the beginning of class to keep your mind prepared for the class that we're about to have, and also to keep your mind studious. You understand? Because building up your scriptural repertoire is going to always allow your mind to overcome the thoughts of laziness and idleness and concupiscence that keeps you from wanting to study. This is why we go into the intro scriptures, just to get you prepared for the deep topic that we're going to bring out today. Yesterday, Officer Kabar, and Officer Dawoodai, myself, we had held class here yesterday when we were discussing Easter and the Greek gods. Well, we want to follow up with that with even more details on some of these things, and of course, showing you the scriptures that clearly state what we ought to do and what we ought to be, keep our kids away from, what we ought to keep our minds away from, what we ought to be aware of when we operate in this kingdom that disregards us, that shows no mercy to us. All right. Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16. You got that? Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16.
Read.
Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read.
Hold on a second. It says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. I mean, seek God's knowledge out of the book of the Most High. Read this book. Come to class and read the scriptures with us. It's one thing to listen in on the class. You got it in the background. You might be cooking dinner. You got it in the background. You might be playing your video games or doing whatever you do, because, of course, our generation loves to multitask, and I get it, right? But the scripture says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. It is important to read these words as well. It's important to pick up and to look at what's being said, and of course, pay attention. Active listening is important when you're studying the scriptures, right? You're listening to class, you're seeing the visuals, and of course, and I'm going to make sure that y'all get the visuals as well. We're going to be right there with us. You thought I forget about that? No, I got your back too. So we're going to Isaiah. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Read that again from the top, Baba Kushar. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read.
So seek out of the book of the Most High and read. Read on.
No one of these shall fail.
Go ahead.
None shall want her mate.
None shall want this book mated with any other doctrine. You shouldn't mate the Bible with the Quran. You shouldn't mate the Bible with the U.S. Constitution. You understand what I'm saying? You shouldn't mate the Bible with other doctrines, because we know that the church is going to fail us. We know that math class that you learn in school, that physics book, is going to fail you. Not everything is known. We don't know everything about the whole world and the entire planet. These things are going to fail you, but the book of the Most High is not going to fail you. Here we go. So it says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. Now, why is it that none of these words shall fail? Why is it that nothing can compare to the Bible? Read on.
For my mouth it hath commanded.
For what?
For my mouth it hath commanded.
For the Most High's mouth hath it commanded. Read on.
And his spirit it hath gathered them.
And so the Most High's spirit moving upon the earth, moving within men that wrote these scriptures down, gathered these words together to give us direction in these days. And the things that happened aforetime are written for our learning, so that we can look at the world a different way than when we didn't have the scriptures in our mind. Having the scriptures is constantly in our mind, and knowing to not pair it with, the Egyptian Book of the Dead or chematology or Scientology, you know what I'm saying, or any other doctrine that goes away from the scriptures itself. Those are things that we want to get away from, because we got to understand that the Most High commanded this book to be put together, and his spirit gathered these books so that we can come in these days and learn the truth. Understand? Drop that. Let's get Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. I know I'm going through something. We got quite a bit to go through today, so I want to make sure that we get these intro scriptures in, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen so y'all can follow along with. if just in case you don't have your scriptures with you. So Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. Y'all be sure to lock in right now. Now's the time to lock into the truth. You understand? Who knows how many days we have left before the decree of the Most High comes and takes place, and the day of the Lord, affects the entire globe. You understand? But we know that there is one thing that's going to happen before that time. And we living in this time right now. Amos chapter 8 and verse 11 is going to tell you straight up. Go ahead.
Behold, the days come, said the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land.
So he says, behold, the days come, said the Lord Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land. Read on.
Not a famine of bread.
Not a famine of bread. Keep going.
Nor a thirst for water.
Nor a thirst for water, but of what? Keep going. Read on.
But of hearing the words of the Lord.
That's the era that we're in right now. When you go to church, your pastor opens up that book and may give you one or two scriptures and talks and dances, and y'all are singing and dancing for 3 hours straight. Heck, if you ever gone to even like a Pentecostal church, they might even have church service for like 4 hours. And you dang near about to fall asleep in the church because you're getting bored and you're thirsting for the word, but you're not hearing much of it. Or the only parts of the Bible that you're hearing are the same thing that you heard last week and the week before that, talking about forgiveness and some of the most basic parts of the scriptures, which of course the Christian church doesn't even break down correctly. Well, the Most High said this was going to happen. He said that there was going to be a famine of not hearing the words of the Bible, because the church is not going to pull the book of Hosea. The church is not going to break down the book of Revelation. The Christian church is not going to break down Malachi and Obadiah and Zechariah and Ezekiel. You understand? They're going to go over the most basic things. And I'm not trying to hate on any part of the scriptures. All I'm saying is they're not giving you the word, the whole truth of the Bible. They're not giving that to you. Let's get Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10 real quick, and then we'll get into this breakdown. You understand? So, yeah, let's get that. Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10. Okay? Now, like we said, that there was going to be a famine where people were not hearing the word of the Most High. We've already had 3 scriptures, and we're barely just 20 minutes into the class. You understand? And we're continuing to give you the word of the Most High, because the Isupk is going to end that famine. The Isupk is ending that thirst for the water of life that keeps us alive in these times, that gives us the inspiration to continue to learn, the inspiration to continue to live. You understand? And strive to be better, to be those priests that the Most High promised for those that wanted to keep his knowledge, for those that instead of rejecting his knowledge will accept his way of living and come back to our real heritage. Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10 goes further into this, because this is what the Christian church and everybody out there in the world that's not in the Isupk is dealing with. The Most High said that famine would come. The Most High said these things would come. You understand? Hold on, Salaki. I'm going to stop the screen real quick. Go ahead and read that. Tell them where you're at. Isaiah. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 10.
Go ahead.
For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep.
The Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. When you're in that Christian church, that's what you're feeling. When you're in that pew, when you're in that aisle, in that row, you're feeling a spirit of deep sleep, because you're there, but you're not all there. You feel the monotony of the school, meaning the repetition, the boringness. It's not organic. It's not a natural way of learning the Bible. It's a spirit of deep sleep. Those of you out in the world, you have to be on medication. You have to be on drugs like alcohol. You have to be on drugs. You have to be on herbs like marijuana just to get through your day. It's a spirit of deep sleep. You understand? That's what you're feeling when you're going through those things. Read on.
And hath closed your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered.
The seers hath he covered, meaning the minds of those that are supposed to be our leadership, the minds of those that are supposed to be our teachers, that they have their eyes closed. And it's going to go into further detail on what this is talking about. Read on, verse 11.
And the vision of all is is become unto you as the words of the book
Of a book, go ahead.
that is sealed.
Says the vision of all has become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed. So picture everybody in the church, and then you see in the Bible, but that book is sealed. Read. Keep going.
Which men delivered to one that is learned,
Mhm.
saying, read this, I pray thee.
So when you go to the church and you seeing them open up the Bible, it's almost like you're begging, you're thirsting for the word, you're thirsting and hungering for the scriptures. But because the Most High said there was going to be a famine of God's word in the land, this is what happens in the church. Read on.
And he said, I cannot, for it is sealed.
And that's the effect of what it is. That's the visual of it, a spiritual visual of what's going on in the Christian church. They cannot break down these scriptures. They were not given the truth of the Bible. So it says in verse 11, we were in, for those of you just joining in, Isaiah chapter 29, verse 11, it says, the vision of all has become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I cannot, for it is sealed. Read verse 12.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 12.
Go ahead.
And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I am not learned.
That's right. And this is the case because they are not learned. That's why our people celebrate Easter. Because they're not learned, we don't know when the actual beginning of the new year is. And that's why there are people out here celebrating New Year's and Christmas. And the second that Easter is done, they're already talking about Mother's Day. And the second Mother's Day is done, they're already talking about Father's Day and Halloween. And the second Halloween's done, they're talking about Thanksgiving. They're always keeping you occupied with their customs because that overall visual is what? Is us in a deep sleep. It's us not being awake to who we are. And this is what the Isupk come here to destroy. We destroy this with the truth. And we slay those demons with the truth. We slay those false idols. We slay that deep sleep, that spirit of deep sleep that the Most High put on the world. We are here to reverse it so that we can open up that book and say, yes, we know what it's saying. And the truth of the matter is, people out there in the world have been wanting to hear the truth for a long time, but for the most part, their churches are not able to even break it down in a way that they're going to learn anything. And so they're stuck doing the same thing over and over, and they're stuck in that cycle of deep sleep. And that's why our people are on drugs. And that's why our people have to go to the club and spend all their money on strippers, because they're looking for something, but they're still in a deep sleep. They're still in a state of mind that is asleep. They're not awakened. They're not quickened. And because of that, our people perish because of that. You understand? So we got to come back to this truth. And so in the Isupk, that's what we're here to do. We're here to break that curse. You understand? Read on. Verse 12.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I am not learned.
And that's the Christian church. Read on. And this is how you know it's talking about that. Verse 13.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore the Lord said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth.
That's right.
And with their lips do honor me.
And with their lips do honor me. This is what people in the church do. They praise Jesus. They say, oh God, we pray to you. You thank you for everything and blah, blah, blah. Read on.
But have removed their heart far from me.
They have removed their heart far from me. And then what else? Keep going.
And their fear towards me is taught by the precept of men.
Read that again.
And their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men.
By the precept of men, meaning not according to this book. Because in this book, the Israelites followed the customs of the Passover. In this book, the Israelites follow the customs of Hanukkah, not Christmas, not Easter, not New Year's and Independence Day and Thanksgiving. But those feast days are considered holidays in this kingdom. Now, go figure. Now, why is that? Read that last part again. Their fear of me is taught by what?
By the precept of men.
By the precept of men. By the traditions of men. And that's the thing that's happened to our people today. So when we show you the scriptures, we're here to reverse those things. You understand? And so we're going to go into that tonight. We're going to continue to show our people the truth that this is nothing new. None of this that you're seeing out here in the world right now, your relatives that aren't even in the school, your relatives that want you to wish you a happy birthday and wish you a happy Easter, they're stuck in that sleep state. And you have to understand exactly what that is so that we can then dismantle those ideologies from them, to clean them up and bring them back into the fold. Just like how you brothers and sisters out there in the Isupk are starting to awaken and put away those customs that were taught by the precepts of men. You understand? And now we're going to get into the topic. Okay. So Ezekiel chapter 8 and verse 9. Let's go ahead and go to Ezekiel chapter 8 and verse 9. And we're going to talk about it because, the scripture says whatever was written aforetime was written for our learning, that through patience and, through the scriptures that we might have hope, that we ought to learn from the things that happened in the past, because we're going to see the parallels with what's going on today. And it's important for us to break these things down so that you can see them clear as day. And now you look at the world through a biblical lens, and it allows you to navigate through your life with a much more wise approach, with a much more scriptural and biblically sound approach. All right. So we're going to Ezekiel chapter 8 and verse 9. Go ahead.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto me, go in and behold the wicked abominations that they do here.
Right. So the angel's talking with Ezekiel. He's showing Ezekiel around. He's come almost like taking him around and giving him a tour of some of the things that are going on amongst the nation of Israel. And he said, go in and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. So we're going in and we're going to have a sneak peek of some of the things that Israel was doing back then in the times of Ezekiel that the Most High was not pleased with, and that the angel is showing Ezekiel, these are abominations. These are things that we need to break away from because our people are doing these things. Well, let's read about some of these things and let's see if these are things that happen this very day. Go ahead.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse
10. Go ahead.
See, I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things, and abominable beasts. Go ahead. And all the idols of the house of Israel, portrayed upon the walls round about.
So he's going in and he's seeing every form of creeping things, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about. Meaning these beasts, these creatures, these things that he's seeing, they're on images that are all throughout the house, the walls of this room that he walked into. Okay, keep that in mind. Read on.
Verse 11. And there stood before them 70 men.
How many?
70.
70. 70. That's 70 men, right? Read on.
Of the ancients of the house of Israel.
Go ahead.
And in the midst of them stood
Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan,
with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense.
All right, so let's break that down. So he says, I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed on the wall. So he's walking in this room and he's seeing pictures of like dragons and abominable beasts. What's an abominable beast? Beasts that are from someone's imagination, right? Different idols, different people of status in society, people of high status, those are considered idols back then, and they're portrayed on the walls round about. Keep that in mind, because now this is going to actually give you a clear visual of what we're actually looking at here. It says, and stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his what?
His censer.
His what?
Censer.
Let's see. What is a censer? A censer is a device that holds incense. This is a censer right here. First of all, this is a censer right here. It holds incense. But the type of incense that's in there is what it's talking about here. You understand? The type of incense that's in here is important to know because it's talking about certain things that are unlawful in our congregation, that are unlawful in our temples. You understand? Because first of all, you're seeing idols from the other nations around the walls. Now you're seeing them burning incense. It's almost like as if they are burning incense to commemorate those idols. And it says what? His censer in his hand. Read on.
And a thick cloud of incense.
And a thick cloud of incense went up. And that's no different from when you walk into your friend's house and he's got a picture of Bob Marley on the wall, or a picture of who God knows what, Thor or Captain America or whatever. Maybe he's a DC or Marvel fan, right? So he's got all these idols on his walls, and he's sitting down and he's smoking a joint. And everybody in the room's got a blunt lit, or they're sharing one, which is gross because, you know, that's not sanitary, but they'll do that, right? They'll either have a bong of some sort, they'll have a blunt in their hand, they'll have a pipe, and they got that incense, and that thick cloud is going up from that censer, meaning they're inhaling it and exhaling it, and that thickness, because it's being concentrated in their lungs and going out, or being breathed in and breathed back out, is going up. This is a biblical scene right here that you've seen growing up when you went to college, when you went to those high school parties. You understand? That's no different than what you see out here today. And that is what the angel is showing Ezekiel. And he's saying, this is an abomination. You seeing that? It's heavy, right? Because this is what happens. And that's no different than what we're seeing today. That's no different than what we're seeing today. Where you'll have some guy in there, and usually it's an Edomite that introduces you to all these crazy drugs out there. Or if you're in the hood, it's a brother that had been, introduced to those things at an early age by people that he shouldn't have been hanging around. And before you know it, you're being influenced to do the same thing. And the more that you're doing that, your mindset is changing. Because now when you have that mindset of then worshiping those idols and having thoughts that are not sober-minded, then you start to sway into not wanting to follow God's laws. You understand? So you start to keep yourself away from the truth when you're behind closed doors doing things like this, hoping that nobody sees what you're doing, thinking that what you're doing is okay. You understand? And that hurts a lot of Christians' feelings because they're used to being asleep and they're used to doing things like this. But it is an abomination, and it is important to know that and to identify that so that you could cut that off right at the forefront. Those of you that have children, that you want to show them the scriptures, you want to show them these things so that they know that if they were to ever go into a room and they see something that looks like this, that they'll avoid it with all hope that the Most High will forgive them for even being in that room, lest they end up inhaling that incense and becoming subject to the psychedelic effects of those instances, such as marijuana. It's the most common one, right? But now you got things like opioids that are affecting all sorts of demographics across the world right now. And now they want to call it what do they say now? Now the opioid epidemic is an issue that we all need to take caution of, because now they're starting to destroy themselves because of those same things. Our people have been destroyed because we haven't turned to the Most High and we look to pleasures rather than God's knowledge. All right, read on.
Verse 12. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark?
What they say do in the what?
In the dark.
In the dark, meaning they're trying to hide the fact that they're doing this. Tell them where you're at one more time. It was Ezekiel chapter, was it 8?
8, verse 12.
Verse 12. Let me go ahead and pull it up on here too. All right, there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 12. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark? Every man in the chambers of his imagery.
And what happens when you're in that weed? When you're smoking weed, is that it leaves you in the chambers of your imagery, of your mind. You get stuck in your head, your thoughts, and everything that comes with it, such as the bad influences, the demons, the the evil thoughts that come into your mind that cause you to say this. Read on.
For they say, the Lord seeth us not.
They say what?
The Lord seeth us not.
Read that again.
The Lord seeth us not.
Them potheads that are sitting in that room, or them cats that are sitting in that car, hot boxing that car, in their mind, they think that they're gonna get away with what they're doing because they've always gotten away with it, because they're stuck in the dark. They lock themselves in their room, hiding from the police. They're hiding, trying to say that God doesn't see what we're doing behind closed doors. Read on.
The Lord has forsaken the earth.
And that's another thing that a lot of potheads turn to is atheism. They think that their God doesn't exist. They see that they stuck in the chambers of their imagination, and they see the things going on in the Ukraine and the things going on across the world, the famines, right? The shootings, right? All the things going on in the hood, and they're just sitting in that room trying to escape it all. And they're telling themselves that God has forsaken the earth. Meanwhile, they don't understand that these things that are happening are because the prophecies of the Most High are coming to pass. If they were in these classes, they would know very well that the God of the Bible, that he wants war on this earth, that he calls for famine on this earth. He's calling for these things because he's preparing the world for this shift in power. And meanwhile, our people who don't know any better, they're going and locking themselves in these chambers and stuck in their own minds, stuck in their own ways. Those fake Israelites out there, or there's individualites out there that claim that they have some sort of knowledge, are the same ones that are hiding away in their room, smoking that blunt, saying that God doesn't see what I'm doing, thinking that they're going to get away because God hasn't punished them instantly for the things that they do. And they say that the Most High have forsaken the earth. And so that's the issue that we run into, especially in the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, here in America and across the world, where we got to smoke drugs and we got to stick with selling drugs and buying drugs and always getting high and being the cool one at the party by bringing all the weed to smoke out all the girls, because that's the only way you're going to get a girl to want to mess with you, because she's going to have to be out of her mind to mess with a stupid, goofy person like you that smells bad. You understand? But you don't have to be like that. But wait, there's more. Read on.
Verse 13. He said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do.
Read that again.
He said unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do.
Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Let me go ahead and pull that up on the board here. Let's see here. There it is. So go ahead and get verse 14.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 14. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. And behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz. There sat
multiple women weeping for Tammuz. We talked about Tammuz last class, didn't we not? Who is Tammuz?
Tammuz, he's a god, or the god that died.
Right, and who was the son of Baal? The son of Baal is Tammuz, which goes to the Greek culture. That's why we're going to bring this up. Is when we're going into this. I got that first article. Let's go ahead and pull that first article up. All right. Going to go ahead and pull that up, because Easter celebration is based off of the worship of Tammuz, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. This is an abomination that our people have been exposed to over the years. Let's go ahead and go to, we can start from the word Easter. The pagan origin of Easter. You see that? Go ahead and read that.
The pagan origin of Easter. To understand all of the modern day Easter traditions, you actually need to look beyond Christianity history and back further into into that of the pagans.
That of the pagans, meaning the other nations, the other cultures that had nothing to do with the Bible. Okay, so when you look at the Easter traditions, you look beyond Christianity. and you have to look at its origins to understand what Tammuz is, and the abomination that the angel was showing Ezekiel here, that women were weeping for Tammuz. All right. Now we're seeing how it's going to tie into Easter. Read on.
The pagans celebrated Ishtar, pronounced very similar to Easter,
Right.
which was a day that also celebrated a resurrection.
Go ahead.
That one of their gods, known as Tammuz.
One of their what?
One of their gods, known as Tammuz.
One of their gods, known as Tammuz. Read on.
He was believed to be the only son of the moon goddess and the son of God.
And the sun god.
Or in the sun god.
Read on.
Tammuz came along in a very similar. My bad.
You're all right.
Similar way to Jesus Christ. His mother was a powerful queen of Babylon named Semiramis.
Keep going.
After her husband died, Semiramis married her own son, who was named Nimrod. I'm sure it says Nimrod, right?
Nimrod, yes.
Yeah, Nimrod thereof became a powerful king. Semiramis would unfortunately become a widow again when her husband was killed by an enemy. To make matters worse, Nimrod's body was cut into pieces and sent to all parts of the kingdom.
So again, Easter has something to do with Ishtar, right? Which is based off of a resurrection. And we know Ishtar is also a goddess of the Greeks, right? That's what that's talking about. And so when you read down, go ahead and skip down to where it says where the Easter bunny first came along. Of course, a bunny itself is a harmless creature down there, right? But what is it that this has to do with Ishtar and Easter and Tammuz ultimately? Go ahead.
Semiramis would go on to have another child. She fell pregnant, but the father was not among the living. The father was, in fact, Baal.
And that's where Tammuz is actually his father's so-called Baal. Okay, read on.
Her former husband, son, and now sun god, instead of sperm, the sun rays were the source of her immaculate conception.
Immaculate conception seems to be a theme among the heathen. And they superimpose that theme on the Christian church to an immaculate conception of our actual King Jesus Christ. Is that true? No, it's not true. Is this story got any meaning behind it? Meaning, does it have any substance behind it? No, because it's just a fable. Because all the idols of the other nations are not true. But they make it true by making it a custom that's celebrated every single year when you lay those bunny eggs around the backyard for your children to go seek out. When you dress like a whore and act like a whore during the time of Easter. Because Easter is about fertility. Easter is about these things. And we're going to get more specific into that. Read on.
So along comes a baby boy named Tammuz. Little Tammuz was so fond of rabbits that his mother would soon declare them scarred.
So your daughter that's running around chasing, talking about bunnies are cute. Don't get me wrong, bunnies, they're nice little animals, but just keep in mind that the eggs and the bunnies has to deal with Tammuz. And the scripture we were reading in Ezekiel was real heavy because it's showing you that the women were weeping for Tammuz, and that's a part of this situation. So read on, and it's going to break it down completely.
Unfortunately, Tammuz was killed by a wild boar when hunting. His mother told her people that he was now in the sun with his father. But each year, Semiramis declared.
Semiramis
declared there be a 40-day period of the sorrow before the anniversary of his death, and no meat was to be eaten in this time.
Read on.
Much similar to the Catholic tradition of Lent.
To the what?
Catholic tradition of Lent.
That's heavy right there. You see what I'm saying? Because Tammuz died. Every single year there was a 40-day period of sorrow before the anniversary of his death that no meat was to be eaten. And what has the Catholic Church done? They give you a period where you're supposed to give something up. Sometimes people choose it to be meat. It could be other things because they've watered it down. But this is a Catholic tradition that comes from pagan customs, specifically Lent. But we know that it deals with Tammuz. And we just read in the scriptures, it says, then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. You feel me? So what we're reading in the scriptures is real heavy right now, because it's literally showing you that these customs that our people have been swayed into following today has nothing to do with the Bible. In fact, everything not to do with the Bible, what these other heathens have superimposed on the Bible to try to get us to follow their customs. And our people eat it up like chocolate, literally chocolate bunnies and all sorts of things. So it's incredibly strange the way that they go about it, but that's the way that they worship it. Moving on, go on to the next article. We're going to continue in that. Origin of Easter. Yeah, you know what? Go ahead and did you got that one pulled up? Mm-hmm. Go into where it says let me see. The son that she brought forth was named Tammuz. You see it? It's a couple paragraphs down. Oh, you know what? You could do the first one where it says the mystery religion. You could start there. Go ahead and start there.
The mystery religion.
The mystery religion. Go ahead.
Nimrod was killed because of his violence and iniquity against the truth of unliving God, and his body was cut into pieces and sent to various parts of his kingdom.
And we read that in the other article. This is just kind of saying the same thing. Go ahead.
His wife, mother, told the people of Babylon that Nimrod has ascended to the sun and was now to be called Baal.
Now we see how it all ties together. Easter is about the weeping of Tammuz and honoring Tammuz. And Tammuz was the son of Baal, who was what?
The sun god.
Which was formerly known as Nimrod, who we know that our people, unfortunately, celebrate Nimrod every year during the Christmas. Okay, with the Christmas tree, those Babylonian customs that we were going to go into in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 8, talk about preventing our people from following the worship of Nimrod. Well, guess what? You're being tricked into worshiping Nimrod's supposed son, Tammuz, when you celebrate Easter. So in the Isupk, it's imperative that we go into these things so that we can completely break down these customs and dismantle these gods, so-called gods of these other nations, because they are nothing but trash to us. They mean nothing to us. But because our people fall into following these customs, their kingdom gets more and more powerful from all the money that we spend on celebrating their customs every single year. You see how everything's starting to come together? That's the issue that we fall into, being part of this kingdom. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. Let me go ahead and share the screen again. Slovakia. I just need that tab right there. Where is it at? Right here. Boom. There we go. Read on. It keeps going.
Oh, Samaria.
Mm-hmm.
Was creating a mystery religion, and with the help of Satan, she set herself up as a goddess.
See that? See how they working literally with Satan? That's even in their records. That it is an evil deity at hand here, and our people are being tricked into following after evil deities, and that's something. But when we read the scriptures are telling us about the world that we live in today, this very day. They're still trying to get us to follow their gods. And to be honest with you, they're tricking a lot of our people. And that goes with exactly what we were talking about in Isaiah, where our people were put in a state of deep sleep, where they could go to church and they can open up the Bible and they won't see Tammuz and say, oh, I can't celebrate Easter, because they don't understand it. And it's right in front of their face. You see that? So it's important for us to bring these things out so that we could be well-rounded in the Bible and also be able to look and see the society we live in and know what to stay away from, know what to not be fooled by. You understand? That's the important part of coming into the truth, is starting to study the Bible to the point where we can remember those things and then act on them. And then when other people will question us and why we act on them, we can show them the Bible and show them why we don't do these things. And it makes us that much more powerful over those gods, those false gods, those demons that try to get us to follow their customs that ultimately lead to our death. All right. Read on.
Semiramis claimed that she was
Immaculately conceived.
Okay.
Or conceived. Yeah, I see it. Go ahead.
She taught that the moon was a goddess that went through a 28-day cycle and evolved when full, and that she had come down from the moon in a giant moon egg that fell in the Euphrates River.
The Euphrates. Okay.
The Euphrates River as a sunrise at the time of the first full moon after the spring equinox on a Sunday.
Semiramis.
Semiramis became known as Ishtar.
Became what?
Became known as Ishtar.
So we've been reading about Semiramis and how that's the mother of Tammuz, right? So now you got to put the 2 and 2 together. That Semiramis is now known. It became known as Ishtar, which is pronounced Ish and then Tar, referred to as what? Read on.
As Ashtoreth.
Ashtoreth.
In scripture.
In the scriptures, she's known as Ashtoreth. We're going to get those scriptures that talk about this Ishtar or this Greek goddess. Go ahead.
And her moon egg became known as Ishtar's egg.
And her moon name became known as Ishtar's egg. Go ahead.
One of her titles was the Queen of Heaven. And 2 of her fertility symbols were the rabbit and the egg.
Read that again.
One of her two fertility symbols were the rabbit and the egg.
Read that again.
One of her 2 fertility symbols were the rabbit and the egg.
And what did people use during Easter?
The rabbit and egg.
And so what are they celebrating? They're celebrating Ishtar. They're celebrating, or they're honoring Tammuz. Okay? So this is serious business because the scripture clearly states that is an abomination. Not only are you not following the Bible, you think you are when you're in Christianity, when you're in Catholicism, but you're actually serving Baal, who is what? Nimrod. You're actually serving, what's her name again? Semiramis, who's Ishtar. You're actually serving Tammuz, these heathen gods that don't even exist, first of all. But because you celebrate them to that extent, you give the other nations the power over the entire world. You understand just how that works? That our people have been fallen prey into believing that these things actually matter and that these are customs that we're supposed to teach our children. And we read in Hosea, it says that because you rejected knowledge, that God will also reject thee and thy children. That's why your children are running around the backyard picking up the eggs and crying because they fell on their knee and scraped their knee, or they fighting over that egg because grandma put a $5 bill in there and they'll damn near kill the other kid just to get that $5 bill so they can go spending on some candy that low-key has pork inside of it. You understand that our people are such in a deep state of sleep that it's pathetic to the point where our enemy looks at us like we are nothing. That's why he stomps on our necks whenever he gets the chance to pull us over. That's why he throws us in the prison system and sends us to the abortion clinics, because we are of nothing to them. And when we follow these religions, I want you to read that part again, because that part was really, really heavy, what we just read. Start with read that part again, it says, Semiramis became known as Ishtar. Read that one more time.
Semiramis became known as Ishtar.
As Ishtar, which is pronounced what?
Ishtar, referring to as Ashtoreth.
Ashtoreth
in scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And her moon egg became known as Ishtar's egg.
And her moon egg became known as Ishtar's egg. Go ahead.
One of her titles was the Queen of Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of her fertility symbols were the rabbit and the egg.
The rabbit and the egg. That's what your Easter celebration is. You seeing all your family members, that girl that you had a crush on, she's on her Snapchat playing with the Easter bunny and the rabbits and the eggs, and little does she know she's in the exact same position as them sisters that the angel was showing Ezekiel in chapter 8 verse 14, where it said, behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz, because it was a custom that for 40 days that they wept for Tammuz. And when you put that ash on your head to celebrate Lent, you Catholics out there, you're weeping for Tammuz. You're showing that you're submissive to the gods of the other nations. But when you come into the scriptures, you can find out and understand precisely how to slay those thoughts, how to overcome those influences so that they don't have your kids lost, so they don't have your kids acting like monsters every single year, talking back to you, treating you with disrespect. That's the mindset that comes into those children that you're trying to raise up, that you care and love about so much. But because you don't know the scriptures, it causes us to err. And in fact, Christ knew about this very same thing. So let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 22 and verse 29. You go ahead. Oh, you know what? There's more to it. Let's hold that article. Go ahead and get Matthew chapter 22, verse 29. I'm gonna keep this article up, but we're gonna pull that scripture up so that we can read what Christ had to say about this. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 22 and verse 9.
Verse 29. Go ahead.
29? Matthew chapter 22 and verse 29. Jesus answered and said unto them, Ye do err, not knowing the scriptures,
right,
nor the power of God.
He says, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God. Okay. Now go back, read on, verse 30. Go ahead.
Verse 30. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven.
Read on.
Verse 31. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have ye not read that which was spoken unto you by God, saying, verse 23 or 32, my bad.
Verse 32, go ahead.
I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Read on.
God is not the God of the dead.
Right.
But of the living.
Right. And what these heathens are trying to do is they're going to get you to try to follow some God that worships dead deities. But God says that he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. He said that the resurrection that is not about people coming back to marry and refertilize the earth and all these different things that Ishtar had our people believing in. You understand? This is the confusion of the Christian church, because they don't understand just how intertwined that the Catholicism has moved Babylonian and Greco-Roman customs and merged it into the Bible. That's why we pulled the scripture at the beginning that said, none shall want her mate. Seek ye out the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. You're not supposed to make the Bible up with Babylonian doctrine. You're not supposed to make the Bible up with Greco-Roman goddesses and gods and deities and creeping things and idols that you portray on the walls of your house and smoke weed and get high and enjoy the festivities that have to do with their customs. Not supposed to do those things. Israel is a much more righteous nation, a much more precise nation, and even more so, Israel has a God that is a God of the living and a God that is real. But these other nations, they serve a God that does not exist. So pull yourself away from those customs and stop worshiping gods that are dead, gods that don't exist, gods that mean nothing. That's what happens when you worship for when you weep for Tammuz. That's what happens when you put those Easter eggs and the bunny eggs and the Christmas gifts under the tree, and you go trick or treating. And you buying gifts for Valentine's Day and you buying gifts for Mother's Day and all these different customs that always come back. They always come back to that Babylonian and Greco-Roman Empire. It always goes back to that. But do you ever consider the fact that maybe the Most High doesn't want you doing any of that stuff? Or do you just want to go with the flow just because everybody else does it? Maybe perhaps it's okay. It's not okay. The Most High is warning you about these things, and he's telling you to pull yourself away from them, and Christ is telling you the same exact thing. Christ is telling you that he is the God of that God is the God of the living, not of the dead. You understand? And so go ahead and drop that. Let's get Acts chapter 12 and verse 1. Acts chapter 12 and verse 1. It's imperative for you to understand that when the Bible when the New Testament was being forged, when we read about the New Testament, the disciples, Christ, the Israelites that actually kept God's commandments, they had the Old Testament and the records that we now know as the Apocrypha. The New Testament hadn't even been written yet. So they followed customs of old, customs that God told us to follow. If you took part in the Passover last week, you are breaking away from the worship of Baal. If you follow in the Passover, you're breaking away from the worship of and honoring of Tammuz. But when you follow those customs and you're stuck saying happy birthday and happy Easter and you're posting on your Snapchat and your social media of the little petty things that you're doing, you're not worshiping the Most High. And the Most High sees you as nothing, because he doesn't see you as one of his righteous sons and daughters when you're doing those things. But Christ and the disciples, they followed the customs of Israel, and will prove it in the Bible. Acts chapter 12, start at verse 1. Go ahead.
Acts chapter 12, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now about the time Herod, the king, stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church.
So the King Herod had he wanted to stretch forth his hands to vex certain of the church. Read on.
Verse 2. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword.
So James got murked. All right. Tell them where you're at again. I'm catching them up. I'm gonna make sure this screen has it. So Acts chapter 12.
Yeah, chapter 12, verse 1.
Verse 1. Most High Christ. All right, so go ahead.
Start all over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Acts chapter 12, verse 1. Now about the time Herod, the king, stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church. Verse 2. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword.
With the sword. Read on. Verse 3.
And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread.
So this took place when?
Or during the days of unleavened bread.
What's important about knowing that they mentioned that the Israelites followed those customs. Okay, though our people, and you know what's crazy is that it says that because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Our people were falling away from the truth at that time. But the days of unleavened bread were something that was still commemorated for Israelites that kept God's commandments. But you had people that wanted to worship Tammuz back then. You had people that wanted to commemorate Ishtar and Baal back then because of the enticement of it, because of the fact that the heathens were doing these things. Let's go ahead and go back to that article, because we got to get more from that article. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get that ready real quick. Sign Christ. So what we talking about right now is we're showing you how to slay those Greek gods. Slay those Greek gods and understand through a biblical lens how to identify, how to cut, meaning how to show, how to prove the truth, that the people that are trying to get you to go back into Christianity, the people that are used to smoking weed and doing all the things that we talk that those angel was showing Ezekiel in chapter 8, was showing him that those abominations were taking place. Those are all things that we got to stay away from. So showing you the scriptures and then giving you of course the explanation of these cultures of the other nations is supposed to sway you from wanting to continue with those things. And in doing so, you're slaying those demons. You're slaying the influence that those gods have had on your grandparents and your forefathers, because if you cut that off right now, your children will be blessed with the truth. You will be blessed with the truth. Your family will benefit from it because they're no longer serving a God that does not exist. They'll be serving the real God, the God of the Bible. You understand? So in that article, let's go back to that article because there's some real heavy stuff in here. Where did we leave off? We was talking about the fertility symbols, where the rabbit and the egg, right?
Yeah. And then it's like,
Skip to the next one where it says the son that she brought forth was named Tammuz. Go ahead.
the son that she brought forth was named Tammuz.
Uh-huh.
Tammuz was believed to be the son of the sun god.
Of the sun god Baal. Okay. Now we just broke down that Ashtoreth in the Bible was Ishtar, which was the mother of Tammuz. And that Tammuz was a man that was to be honored every year for 40 days. And what we now know is the custom of Lent that the Catholic Church follows. They follow that custom. They weep for Tammuz without even knowing it because it's dressed up to look like it's Christianity when in fact it's all heathen and pagan customs. All right. So let's read a little bit more about Tammuz again. Tammuz was believed to be the son of the sun god Baal, which we know was Nimrod, right? Go ahead.
Tammuz, like his supposed father, became a hunter.
So he became a hunter, right? Because Nimrod was a hunter. Nimrod was a man that was of high stature and hunted and did things like that. And Tammuz was trying to be like his dad. But read on.
The day came when Tammuz was killed by a wild pig.
So Tammuz got murked by a pig because he couldn't handle the pork. You feel me? He got murked by wild pigs. Wild pigs could be kind of hard to kill. You know what I'm saying? And they'll defend themselves. They're gross. They're gross as all hell, but they will take a bite out you because they'll eat anything. Go ahead.
Queen Ishtar told the people that Tammuz was now ascended to his father, Baal, and that the two of them would be with the worshippers in the scared candle or lamp flame as Father, Son, and Spirit.
Hold on a second. Read that again. That's a real heavy fact, a real heavy point to bring out there because you see how it all ties together. Father, Son, and Spirit. That terminology, that theme is used in the Christian church of what's called the trilogy, the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity is based off of Tammuz and Baal and that spirit of heathenistic customs. Of course, in the Isupk, we teach you that Christ and God are not the same being. Why would Christ be talking to himself when he was on the cross, right? That doesn't make any sense. But what we're seeing right here is that this worshipers in the sacred candle or lamp flame as what? Father, Son, and Spirit. Read on.
Oh, you want me to read it again or read on?
No, read it again. Again, it's always good to hit that point more than once, so it really hits home on the folks that are listening in because they need to understand what they've been worshiping all these years. They do err not knowing the scriptures, right? That's what Christ said. But if we know the scriptures, then we won't err no more. Go ahead, read that.
Queen Ishtar told the people that Tammuz was now ascended to his father, Baal, and that the two of them would be with the worshippers in the scared candle,
the sacred candle
or lamp flame as Father, Son, and Spirit.
So what were those? Think about this for a second. That the two of them would be with the worshipers in the sacred candle or lamp flame. Remember we were talking about those censers that they were holding up earlier? That those 70 elders of Israel had those censers in their hand and they were lighting that flame. They were worshiping Baal. And that's why it follows up with that very next verse in Ezekiel chapter 8. Let's actually go back to that real quick because it's a really heavy point to get. Let me go ahead and get that. For y'all, those of y'all that are tuning in, I mean, good night. I mean, this is some heavy stuff that we're talking about here, right? I mean, we're slaying these Greek gods one by one, and we ought to do this so that we could no longer be deceived by these other nations anymore. I'm going to go ahead and share the whole... I guess the window's fine. There it is. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. All right. So it says, remember that was from Ezekiel chapter 8, right? We might flip flop a little bit. Start at verse 11.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of them stood
Jazaniah,
the son of Shaphan,
mm-hmm.
with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up.
Mind you, this is an abomination here. We just read in this excerpt that it says Queen Ishtar told the people that Tammuz was now ascended to his father Baal, and that the two of them would be with the worshippers in the sacred candle or lamp flame as Father, Son, and Spirit. So in spirit, you're worshiping Baal and you're worshiping Tammuz when you're celebrating Easter. You understand what I'm saying? That's how twisted those heathens are about confusing us and enticing us to follow their customs. And they've done it in such a sneaky way that our people are doing this willingly and don't even know that that's what they're doing. That's how crazy this whole thing is, right? Go to verse 14.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 14. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north.
Mm-hmm.
And behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz.
And this is how you know it's talking about the same thing, because we're talking about Baal and we're talking about Tammuz, and it's talking about Ishtar, which is Easter, and it's talking about these customs of the heathens that ultimately are worshiping satanic customs, because they even told you that Satan helped her, right? Which is incredibly crazy, but that's the culture that derives from Babylon and of course Esau, who took it and ran with it. So go ahead and read verse. Now you can move on to verse 15.
Okay. Verse 15. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these.
You have even greater abominations going on. Read verse 16. Go ahead.
Verse 16. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house.
Mm-hmm.
And behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men,
Mm-hmm.
with their backs toward the temple of the Lord.
See that? See how they're disrespecting the Most High by following those other nations? Right? That's what's going on right here. Now read on, verse 17.
And their faces towards the east, and they worship the sun towards the east.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 17. Ooh, what do you do? Okay.
Then he said unto me, go ahead.
Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence and have returned to provoke me to anger.
Mm-hmm.
And lo, they put the branch to their nose.
They put the branch where?
To their nose.
To do what? To inhale it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those drugs, I mean, there's all sorts of drugs out there. But the most prevalent one amongst our nation, especially in the tribe of Judah, especially in the tribe of Isupk, is that marijuana plant or other things. It put, even cocaine comes from plants, and they put that to their nose. And these things that influence us and keep us from having a sober mind have also kept us from serving the Most High, which it led the land to be filled with violence. Drugs is one of the biggest reasons why blacks and Hispanics will have not come together, because we're fighting over territory to sell that product, right? Or they're fighting over, they're just fighting over drugs in general. You know what I'm saying? Of having the supply and all sorts of things. And the land gets put with violence, especially those that are on substances like cocaine and heroin and opium and even marijuana. I know they try to say marijuana calms you down, but a lot of potheads are violent too. And we know dang for sure that a lot of potheads are not serving the Most High also. So we ought to stay away from those customs. Because read verse 18.
Verse 18. Therefore will I also deal in fury.
Ooh, what? Most High said what?
Therefore will I also deal in fury.
The Most High would deal with those people in fury. Go ahead.
Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity.
You ever seen any of the footage of the destruction that goes on at the border of Mexico between the cartels? or what goes on in places like Detroit, Michigan, or Chicago, or should they call Chirac, all of the violence, the destruction, the hatred amongst brethren, people that are supposed to be righteous men and women and children that are supposed to be priests and prophets of the Most High, are now killing each other because they commit these abominations. You see what I'm saying? And so Ezekiel is being shown these things by this angel, and it was recorded on this record so that you could read it here in 2022 and tell yourself that this is still going on to this very day. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to stand up for the Most High and show our people these transgressions and sway them away from following the customs of these heathens? Because things such as worshiping Tammuz, Easter, Christmas, which is in turn Ishtar, Nimrod, and what does it say? Baal. Those are things that lead to our destruction, and we ought to stay far away from them. Because remember, Acts chapter 12 says what? That in those very same times where Israel was starting to fall apart, there were also Israelites that were trying to keep the Passover, that were keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So instead of putting that branch to your nose and smoking that herb or sniffing that coke or doing them drugs, stay away from those things. Why? Because the Most High will deal with you in fury. Read on. It says, my eyes shall not spare. Go ahead.
And thou, they cry in my ears with a loud voice. Yet will I not hear them.
Their prayers go unanswered because they don't follow the Most High, because they go after the customs of the other nations and the lusts and the pleasures of the flesh and all the things that come with that ignorance, that state of deep sleep, that Christian church that does not show them the truth of this book. And this is how you know the Isupk is the home of the truth, because we can open that very same book and it'll tell you not to celebrate Christmas. It'll tell you not to celebrate Easter, but it will tell you to celebrate Hanukkah, and it will tell you to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover. It'll tell you to put fringes on your clothes. It'll tell you to not eat pork. It'll tell you to not sleep with another man's woman. These are things that are going to keep violence from taking over the land and to keep our people from killing each other without pity. Because the Most High says that if you do those things, if you follow his laws, then he will spare you. Then he will hear you. But if you don't, his eye shall not spare. He will not show pity. He'll laugh in the day of your calamity. And those prayers and those cries that your mama cried to the Lord because she lost her son at an early age, the Most High will not hear that. And it's unfortunate that this is what happens so commonly among our people. But more and more during this age of awakening, where these righteous men in the school of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we can open this book. We've been authorized to open this book to show you the truth that the Most High's book, these words are real. These things are happening in front of your face. And there's more to it. There's always more to it. Go ahead and drop that. Let me get Romans chapter 1, verse 23. Let me go ahead and get Romans chapter 1 and verse 23. Now we're going to be rocking and rolling because I want to get through these scriptures. I'm going to close out strong on here. Again, the Isupk, we give you scriptures, so make sure you're writing these scriptures down, folks, because they're going to be good for your repertoire. They're going to be good for you to always look back on around these times. I mean, because the unfortunate thing is we got to deal with these same wicked customs every single year. So guess what? Next year you're going to have this breakdown already, right? You're going to have the answers already. While the rest of your family might not, maybe they'll give heed to the words of the Bible instead of what the white man tries to tell them to follow. All right. Go ahead and tell them where you're at.
Romans chapter 1, verse 23.
Go ahead.
And changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man.
Verse 22 says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man. Go ahead.
And to birds.
And to birds. Keep going.
4 foot On four-footed beasts.
Four-footed beasts, and what else?
And creeping things.
And this is what you see in Greco-Roman mythology. You ever seen the movie Wrath of the Titans or anything like that? Or Clash of the Titans, or when anything that deals with the Roman or Greco-Roman mythology, where you have creeping things like Medusa, who's a woman slithering around and looking at somebody and making them turn into stone. It's talking about that because you're turning these corruptible things into something with power, something that's like a god or a goddess. Go ahead.
Or like Percy Jackson. Whenever you see
Percy Jackson, that's another example. Poseidon, right? You ever seen from the video game God of War? It's very, very popular game where you're going around and you're fighting Poseidon, right? Poseidon, who's a beast that comes out of the ocean with a trident. Or you're fighting Zeus, who's likened unto a man, a very large man. Hercules, or even Egyptian customs. The same thing with the Egyptian customs. The Scorpion King, the Mummy, which is a corruptible being, a dead being, rather, even that, but something that they give power. Because like, you ever seen the movie The Mummy? How it's a powerful being and it's like scary or whatever, but it's a dead being, right? So you're changing the glory of the Most High to corruptible things that can perish, things that look like birds, things that look like dragons and beasts, four-footed beasts, right? Things like that. They give so much credence to them that it's damn near idol worship. And that's what the Most High is saying when he says this. Go ahead and read verse 25.
Romans chapter 1, verse 25.
Mm-hmm.
Who changed the truth of God into a lie?
Yep.
And worshipped and served the creature more than the creature, who is blessed forever.
The creature more than the creator. That's what they're doing when they're celebrating, bunnies laying eggs, right? That's what they're doing when they're celebrating Nimrod in that Christmas tree. The creature, that creation, that tree that they commemorate Nimrod with. Those creatures that they commemorate in the Greco-Roman mythology, right? The imagery that all comes with it. So let me just take this roll real quick. And that's the heavy thing to keep in mind, is that they're putting it right in your face. That all goes along with it. Let me get Judges chapter 10 and verse 6. Judges chapter 10 and verse 6. This, of course, in the Old Testament. Let me see here. There it is. Good night. Judges chapter 10, verse 6. Read that.
Judges chapter 10 and verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. And served Baalim.
What's it? Serve what?
Baalim.
And who else?
And Ashtoreth.
See what I'm saying? That is the exact same thing. This is what we broke down in that article. That's why we had to get that article. Because Baalim is based off of the Babylonian king Nimrod. Ashtaroth is based off of Ishtar, which we know as the Greek goddess of fertility. You understand? And so there's all sorts of false deities that are out there. That's why it goes and lists them. It says Baalim and Ashtaroth, the gods of Syria, the gods of Zidon. Like, our people are so gullible to want to serve these other nations. But it's time to come out of those things, Israel. That's why we're right here in this class right now, so that you could break away from those things, because those are the things that have led to our weakness, have led to our destruction on this earth. You understand? Because we want to serve Baalim and Ashtaroth, and your grandma is telling you to go pick up, go eat that chocolate bunny and go get those Easter eggs. That's the same exact thing. Or telling you to sing those Christmas carols, that's worshiping Baalim. But it's clothed in such a way that it's tricked our people into thinking that it's okay to go with it and to have fun with it because everybody else is doing it. But But God's telling you, don't be like everybody else. He's telling you right here, the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. This was going on in the book of Judges. And here we are in 2022, and you're doing the same thing again, y'all. But not here in the school. But those people that are out there that don't know better. So you see how it all comes together? Read on.
Verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon,
Mm-hmm.
and the gods of Moab,
The Chinese, like Buddha and them. Go ahead.
and the gods of children of Ammon,
The Japanese. Okay, keep going.
and the gods of the Philistines,
Mm-hmm.
and forsook the Lord, and served not him.
And that's the thing you got to keep in mind. When you're serving these other deities, when you're celebrating those customs, you're not serving the Most High. Because you're not going to celebrate the Passover and Easter and Halloween. You're not going to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. You're half-stepping if you're doing that. Because you're forsaking the Lord when you do that. It's time for us to come out of that. Read on. Verse 7. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel.
Right.
And he sold them into the hands of the Philistines.
Mm-hmm. So Israel caused us to fall into the hands of the Philistines. Go ahead.
And into the hands of the children of Ammon.
So he said, you want to serve their gods? Guess what? You're going to serve them. And that's exactly what's happening to us today. We serving the Greco-Roman gods, and that's why our people are captive under them right now. That's why you have to go and report to slavery every single 5 days a week for 8 hours, just to make it barely enough money to buy a loaf of bread from the store, just to fill your gas tank up and maybe have enough for rent, which has just went up by $300, $400, $500 over the past year because of the inflation. So we're going to be put and sold into the hands of them because our people still celebrate Easter. So you have to really put this in perspective. Those individualites out there, those that say that they don't need to be in a camp, that they don't need to be in a school. If you're doing this by yourself, are you really helping change our people so that we can come out of this captivity? Are you doing what's necessary to build the minds of the next generation so that we don't fall prey into being in control by these other nations? Because the Most High causes us to go through those things. That's why it says the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, because they were worshiping Baal by celebrating Christmas. You're worshiping what is his name? Astarte, or was it Astarte? When you're celebrating Easter, and all the customs of the heathens that have led our people to be confused. Okay, and it's affecting us, it's affecting our kids, and it puts us and just keeps us in that cycle. And they've perfected their treachery over time to where now you don't even know that that's what it is, and you're serving these satanic deities that have nothing to do with the Bible, even though you go to a church. They open up a Bible, but they can't read it and break it down to you the way that the school here can. They never will be able to. They're not authorized with the truth. Only we are authorized with that truth, and you need to come to terms with that. Because if you don't, you're going to keep smoking weed, and you're going to keep following the other nations. You're going to keep celebrating your birthday, which is another satanic custom that you find in the Satanic Bible. And you're going to be sending your kids off for trick-or-treat, and they're going to end up getting kidnapped by some pedophile out there when you're trying to, just for them to get some candy, and they're going to snatch them up in their van and drive off, and you'll never hear from your kids again. Instead of having that happen, break away from those things already, Israel. Break away from those things, because it's time for us to now no longer be in the hands of any other nation, but now put ourselves in the hands of the Most High. Read verse 8.
Verse 8. In the year they vexed and oppressed the children of Israel.
Right. The Ammonites, the Philistines, they oppressed and vexed the children of Israel. Go ahead.
18 years, all the children of Israel that were on the other side, Jordan,
in
the land of Amorites.
The Amorites.
Amorites, which is in Gilead.
And Gilead. Read verse 9. Go ahead.
Verse 9. Moreover, the children of Ammon passed over Jordan to fight also against Judah and against Benjamin and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was sore distress.
Right. Israel was sore distress, clashing with the Ammonites. You think of the Japanese and their ancient culture, what did they dress as? They dressed as samurai. Where do you think they got some of their fighting tactics from? They had to fight against Judah. They had to fight against Benjamin. They had to fight against Ephraim. Men that knew how to fight. But because God didn't have us in our strongest point, we ended up clashing with them and stalemating with them, and we're not able to overcome their attacks. It says Israel was sore distressed because these boys, them samurais with them katanas coming at you, and you don't have the Lord behind your back, they're going to do some damage. I don't care how, and you've seen how they dress. They got the armor plates. They got warlike apparel in their ancient customs. That's how the Japanese did act. That's how they rolled. But you could best believe that they got a lot of what they knew because they had to fight against the children of Israel who were naturally skilled at those things. Most Japanese aren't even but like 5'5", and they're holding their own against Judah, who can very easily be 6'5", right? I mean, come on now. The Most High was not with us during those times because we were doing goofy things like celebrating whatever Christmas was, Saturnalia was back then, or the Feast of Ishtar, celebrating what they call now Lent, the weeping for Tammuz, right? Those are things that we got to put away forever so that we can overcome them. Go to verse 10. Go ahead and go to verse 10.
Verse 10. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, We have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God, and also served Baalim.
And they have said, we have forsaken our God and will also serve Baalim, which goes back to those Babylonian and Greco-Roman customs. So you go back to the origins. That's what's important for us to understand. That's why books are written. Our people don't like to read books, but the books are there so that you can find the origin of customs. The books are there so that, especially the scriptures, these records are here so that we can avoid customs that have caused us to lose wars, that have caused us to be overcome by our enemies and influenced by our other nations that have been around us for so long, to the point where now we have to serve them and we have to answer to them. No, that's not going to go on forever because we will not allow it. We are not going to allow that treachery against us anymore. And now that we're starting to shift these things by taking part in the Passover, to take part in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that now we're going to start looking at each other and value one another more than we ever have before, because now we're starting to see just how powerful it is for another Israelite to be awakened. You know what I'm saying? To take the time to make sure that the next man has a mind well instructed and has the scriptures necessary to overcome those demons and thoughts and influences that have forever plagued our people. All right. Drop that. Let me guess. 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 3. 1 Samuel 7 and 3. 1 Samuel 7, 3. There it is. And continue to 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 3. Go ahead.
1 Samuel chapter 7 and 3. And Samuel spake unto the house of Israel, saying, If ye do not return unto the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the strange gods and Ashtaroth
from among you. So he's Samuel the prophet is doing exactly what the UPK is doing right now, speaking to the house of Israel, saying, if ye do return unto the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the strange gods and Ashtaroth from among you. Stop celebrating Easter, man. Stop celebrating Christmas and New Year's and 4th of July. Go ahead and get rid of all those customs, because right now you need to focus on serving the Most High. You feel me? That's what he's telling them. And we know that Ashtaroth is talking about Astarte, Ishtar. Go ahead.
And prepare your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines.
And so he's giving us a way out. He's saying, go ahead and turn away from those things, and I got you. I'll make sure that y'all get saved from the hand of the Philistines. And right now we're under Esau's foot right now. We're under that. That's why he's got his knee in our neck on the side of the road. You feel me? And so the same thing that was going on back then in the book of Samuel, we're telling you right now in the school of universal practical knowledge that if you turn yourself away from following Easter because we now have the complete understanding as to where it originates from, right? That it's actually you're worshiping Baalim, you're actually worshiping Ashtaroth when you celebrate those customs. Put those things away, and we will be saved from our captivity. We will have rulership and power once again, and we will not be overcome by our enemies. Read verse 4.
Verse 4. Then the children of Israel did not put away Balaam and Asherah
Mm-hmm.
and served the Lord only.
Mm-hmm. And serve the Lord only. And that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to make sure that it happens. We're going to make sure that Israel puts away Easter and puts away Ashtaroth. And those that don't, they're not going to survive the apocalypse. They're not going to survive the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is a day that they should be afraid of because they're not willing to put those things away. You understand? And so, was there anything on that article that we still needed? Yes. Real quick, go back to that article. Let's go ahead and hit that article back up one time more. And we'll jump down to where it says Ishtar.
Ishtar?
Widow of Nimrod, mother of Tammuz. Yeah. Go ahead.
Ishtar, like, who was now worshipped as
She also proclaimed a 40-day period of sorrow. The death of Tammuz, that's the weeping of Tammuz. We talked about that. Ishtar, are you in the article?
Yes, the mystery religion.
Yeah. Down where it says Ishtar, Semiramis, widow of Nimrod, in the parentheses.
Okay.
Go ahead and read right there.
Ishtar, Semiramis, widows of Nimrod, mother of Tammuz, came to be represented as the bare-breasted pagan fertility goddess of the East. The original pagan festival of Easter
was a what?
Was a sex orgy that celebrated the return of life via the fertility of Ishtar's conception of Tammuz.
Because they're trying to bring back they're trying to bring him back. The orgies were something that was to try to bring him back, and skip down to the end of that paragraph. It says the Easter eggs would hatch. Go ahead.
The Easter eggs would hatch on December 25th.
And about 9 months later. So it was a timing thing. They timed it to commemorate Tammuz's father, Nimrod, because it was like as if they were trying to resurrect Nimrod through his son, or through those sex orgies, because they were trying to time it to have that child born on December 25th. That began on the Feast of Ishtar in the spring, and that many of these babies would be sacrificed the following Easter. So it's barbaric what they do. That's what they've done, right? Where it's talking about, and it even goes into what the scriptures are talking about, where it's speaking against those weeping for Tammuz and that whole process, because again, it's commemorating a whole nother nation, and it's almost like they're assisting and resurrecting their deity on the earth physically. So they're trying to make their God a real thing. And so when our people take part in Easter, they're sort of taking part in bringing that God back to life, or attempting to. At least that's their idea. All right, drop that. Let me get Acts chapter 19 verse 24. All right, Acts chapter 19 and verse 24. It continues. There's so much to it. There's so many aspects that our enemies will take to try to sway us into following their customs. It's not just straight up like the way we're seeing it right here. There's other ways, other avenues that they sneak in their customs so that you're low-key cheering for their heroes and their gods. And so you'll see that in the Bible as well, all throughout the Bible. We're getting Acts chapter 19, verse 24. All right, go ahead and get that. Acts chapter 19. Hey, Shalom on Christ, sir. Acts chapter 19, verse 24. Go ahead.
Acts chapter 19 and verse 24. For a certain man named
Demetrius, yep,
and silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana.
Made what?
Silver shrines for Diana.
Silver shrines for who?
Diana.
For Diana. Read on.
Brought no small gain unto the craftsmen. Verse 25. whom he called together with the workmen, like occupation. Oh wow, my bad. Slovakia.
It's all right. Keep going.
I can't even say that word.
Occupation.
Occupation. Oh, man.
Said, sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our wealth. So what he's saying, Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain to the craftsman. So this brother's telling this brother, why are you making these idols based off of these other gods from these other nations? And just to give you a background as to what it's talking about, Diana, when I looked up here, it says Diana means complete light or flow restrained, right? And so it says Artemis, that is to say the so-called Tauric or Persian or Ephesian Artemis, the goddess of many Asiatic people, to be distinguished from the Artemis of the Greeks, the sister of Apollo. A very splendid temple was built to her at Ephesus, which was set upon fire by Herostratus and reduced to ashes. But afterwards, in the times of Alexander the Great, it was rebuilt in style of greater magnificence. Like you said. So Diana was another entity that was considered an idol from back then. And this brother was telling you just how dangerous it was to have that was there. It says that Paul had persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands. And verse 27, it says, so that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. So we had people that were worshiping Diana. And when they heard these things, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, great is Diana of the Ephesians. I want you to, here's another thing that I brought this up because I wanted you to get that third. Go ahead and get that third article. Let's read that one. The whole city was filled with confusion, and having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companions in travel, they rushed with one accord into the theater. Basically, what's happening here is there was riots that were being built, that were starting. These brothers that were out there teaching, telling these men not to create these false idols, they were getting upset, right? And this is what you see today is no different, because you're looking at something that's going on here because it makes a ton of money for the people that were creating those idols. Keep that in mind. Now, what's something that creates a ton of money in these days that are based off of the Greek gods? Let's read about some of these superheroes in the DC and Marvel comic universe. They're all based off of those Greco-Roman deities. Diana specifically is one as well. Do you have that article?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, read that.
Comic book superheroes and the Greek gods.
Mm-hmm.
Superheroes aren't just made. Well, I mean, in the comics they are.
Right.
Actually, not even. Even in the comics, they have backstories,
Mm-hmm.
reasons as to why they become heroes. Anyway, my point is the superheroes don't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
Their creators have to be some kind of inspiration, some base to work off of, or some already existing idea that they can put in their own spin-off.
That's right. So again, the superheroes, they have themes that were taken from other sources. Give you an example. Go ahead and jump down to where it says Hercules. Hercules is the only human that became God, right? And had to go through many demeaning tasks and suffer a great deal of pain before becoming a god. The same goes for Captain America in a more modernized sense. Before becoming a superhero, he was a weakling that was often made fun of. He was shorter than the average male, a lot weaker than average, and he got picked on and beat up by bullies. He was generally embarrassed and demeaned as Hercules was. And then when he was injected with the formula that gave him superhuman capabilities, he was put through an immense amount of pain. While it was for a split second, it still stands that he suffered pain during his final ascension, just as Hercules did. So Captain America is based off of Hercules. It says superheroes Iron Man and Ant-Man seem to embody Daedalus, which was another Greco-Roman god or so-called god. They were mad scientists of a sort, inventors that gave birth to creations of both wonder and horror. Whereas Daedalus gave Icarus wings, Tony Stark created his iron suit that allowed him to fly, where Daedalus gave birth to the monstrosity known as the Minotaur. Iron Man gave known to what was called Ultron, which was an AI, a powerful AI. So you see the parallels there, where Iron Man and even Daedalus, which was from the Greek culture, they were mad scientists that created monstrosities. And in doing so, that it ties right into their culture. They do these things because they influence the children's minds to want to worship those deities in an alternative sense. So when your kid is going crazy because he wants to see the new Wonder Woman movie, and Wonder Woman is based off of the Greek goddess Diana, you understand? These are parallels of them continuing to influence our people to want to buy all that merchandise that makes them all that money. That's why when we were reading in that scripture, we were just talking about it in the book of Acts, those brothers was telling them to put those idols away, but they were getting upset because it was messing with their wallets. And so our people these days, they go crazy over this stuff. This is where it gets real heavy. Go to where the paragraph says Marvel mainly focuses on Greek heroes. Read that part right there.
Marvel mainly focuses on Greek heroes.
Read it a little bit louder just for the mic. Go ahead.
Marvel mainly focuses on Greek heroes and less ultra-powerful figures in mythology to model their heroes after.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any hero that really embodies Zeus or Hades or any of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
DC, however, seems to have a mentality that exactly the opposite of Marvel.
So the DC universe is a little bit different than Marvel's, and let's see what they have to say. Go ahead.
Almost all of DC's heroes are
all of DC's heroes are what?
Modeled after Greek gods.
All of DC's heroes are what?
Modeled after Greek gods.
Read on.
I mean, seriously, the Justice League is pretty much the pantheon.
The pantheon, which is the place where supposedly the Greek gods live on the top of Mount Olympus, separated from all the humans. Read on.
The Greek gods live on the top mountain of Olympus.
Mm-hmm.
Separated from all of the humans. The Justice League lives in the Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
In space. Completely isolated from the humans.
Mm-hmm.
Zeus is the leader of the gods.
Zeus is what?
Zeus is the leader of the gods.
Keep reading.
Superman is the leader of the League.
So you see how they compare Zeus to Superman? Because Superman is supposedly the most strongest one, and that's what Zeus was supposed to be. Read on. Apollo. Who's Apollo?
Apollo is the god of light.
Apollo is the god of light. Okay, go ahead.
The Green Lantern is the hero of light.
Right, the hero of light. That's what they call the Green Lantern. For God's sakes, part of his oath is beware my power, Green Lantern's light. That's what he would say. Those are only similarities on the surface too. Delving into the details, there's a lot of unseen commonalities. Superman is the obvious parallel to Zeus. While he does have a bit of Achilles in him, only one weakness, kryptonite, he mainly resembles the king of gods. In many ways too, not just in the fact that they both rule their council, Zeus's position is not totally cemented. There is the constant fear of being usurped by a new ruler or being overthrown by the other gods. This is the case with the Justice League, where they had to, go against Superman, and it gets even deeper. And this is talking about, again, the merchandise that they make off of these franchises is so vast. It's a world phenomenon, right? But Esau is so sneaky that he snuck in his culture right in our children's faces. So you got kids that worship Superman. They love Batman. Who are these people, and who do they correlate with in the ancient Greek customs? Let's read. It says, the constant fear of being overrun. A lot of his decisions are often questions, and there's a lot of tension between him and the heroes, especially Hades, also known as who? Batman. Yes. Batman is a parallel of Hades. Batman is consistently surrounded by death. His parents died. His friends die. Most of the villains he fights are homicidal maniacs that go on killing sprees. And it says that he even lives in an underground cave, right? He's the king of the underworld. He's like the anti-hero, right? Of Gotham and whatnot. And Hades and Zeus were always at odds with each other. That's why you had Batman versus Superman. You know what I'm saying? Where Batman was actually able to take out Superman, and that's a parallel between Hades and Zeus. You see what I'm saying? So it's even more obvious than that. Like it keeps going. It's crazy. It says like here's a picture. Like I'm actually showing y'all the picture right here for y'all that are seeing the live chat. Here's Batman's lair and here's Hades' lair, and they have a very similar eeriness to them. You know what I'm saying? It's the same exact theme, but they put it in a way that has you like, I don't know if you've seen the new Batman movie, but that thing is just crazy. You know what I'm saying? The way that they portrayed Batman, even in the new movie, he's just this mysterious, like super serious character, you know, vanishing into the darkness, coming out and like fighting crime and all this stuff. And he's like a detective, and they kind of give him almost like a positive portrayal. And I do the same thing with Hades. It's the same thing. Who else we got? So we talk about Zeus, Superman. Matter of fact, I'm gonna actually show you this right here because it goes straight into it. I'm talking about literally. I'm gonna show you this clip from it was let me see if I can get it real quick. Dark Side. Zeus. If it doesn't get any more obvious, it's this part right here. Salakia, let me see if I can get the audio up. This was from Justice League.
Laying waste to all who opposed it. The leader of the invaders was a being called Darkseid, a name cursed and feared in every universe. So
in this case, Zeus, his arch nemesis, isn't even Hades. There's an even more in the Greco-Roman mythology. Moros, the son of Erebos, is the god of doom and darkness. And so in the Justice League movie, Zeus, like literal Zeus, is fighting Darkseid. Okay. And so who comes back later on to try to fight him back again? Superman, right? So they put those parallels in the DC universe because they're trying to entice you to buy their merchandise to keep them rich. And it does. I mean, these movies make billions. The Marvel movies make billions. The DC movies, they make a lot of money too. You feel me? Salaki, go ahead, sir.
And it's almost like a familiar spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been there since they were kids. The story of good and evil, you know what I mean? And it's been there since we were kids. And now we grow up, and the movies. It was comic books, then it was cartoons,
right?
Now it's movies,
and video games, right?
Yeah, video games. So now it's almost like a familiar spirit to go ahead and just engulf yourself into the comic book world,
right?
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Now you can have posters and dress up like comic book heroes, and you know what I mean. When nobody sees anything wrong about it. But it's definitely wrong because is worshiping Greek gods.
Right, and more so like what Hosea 4:6 says, that because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will reject thee, and I will also reject thy children, because they're going after our children with these things. And they do all the cinematics and all that. That's no different than the Greco-Roman theater when they had the Colosseum, or when they had the amphitheater, where they had plays commemorating their gods and showing their men as superheroes. And I'm the water, sir. I'm good on that.
Unleavened bread.
God, I had some already. But you see what I'm talking about? When you see how deep it gets, it's so in your face. It's like, yo, they're literally talking about Zeus in this movie. Like literal Zeus is fighting the god of darkness or dark side. You see this part right here? This is just, it's obvious. I don't even have to sugarcoat it or nothing. Like it's what it is.
Before their descent into the sea.
Let me see if it's
Amazons before their betrayal and enslavement, and guardians from the stars.
Those are the Greek women. That's what Diana is. That's what Wonder Woman comes from. The Greek goddess Diana, or Hermes. Is it Hermes or
no? Diana.
Yeah. It's like it. Go ahead, sir. And there go the boy right there, Dark Side. That like Darkseid is like what Thanos is in the Marvel universe. You know what I'm saying? Darkseid is just all about that action, all about destroying everything. You know, like that's exactly from the Greek mythos about Moros. You read about Moros, it's the same thing. What's up?
Wonder Woman's name is literally Diana.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Her name is Diana. You know, you're talking about when she was young and the older women were calling her like, Diana, come over here. What are you doing? And then she even has that. What did we say that Diana's name meant in the Greek? It said, we just read that, Salakia. It says the term Diana means complete light or flow restrained, and that's what she does with that light lasso. Is that she restrains her enemy and makes them tell the truth. It comes from that same theme of Diana being that flow of light and restrainment using the light. So there's no difference. They just package it a different way, and they got her with the titties, and they used that Israeli bitch. What's her name? The chick that plays her, I forget her name, but she was in Fast and the Furious. But anyway, she's the chick that plays as them, and believe it, and she probably comes from the Greeks because she's a so-called Israeli that comes from that nation of people. So she's like the mascot of Diana, or in that case, Wonder Woman. So you got Darkseid coming in here about to fight Zeus and the old, they call it quote unquote old gods, right? UPK theater up in here. You can see it now. And you see how he puts a stand down and everything becomes chaos and shit.
As Darkseid waged war on Earth, he found a secret there, a power hidden in the infinity of space. He called forth mystics who worshipped and controlled three objects, the mother boxes.
Wait. Mother boxes?
Indestructible living machines. Made from a science so advanced, it looks like sorcery. To conquer, three boxes have to synchronize and join together into the unity. The unity cleanses a planet with fire, transforming it into a copy of the enemy's world. All who live become servants of Darkseid.
And how did I forget about this? Aquaman is Poseidon. With the trident? Come on now. I mean, do I need to make it any more obvious? Like that's what it is, you know what I'm saying? Like Aquaman, right? Got your girlfriend wilding because the dude got his shirt off, right? Meanwhile, she feasting her eyes over Poseidon. She's like, ooh, I need that Poseidon to come pick me up. What's his name? Jason Momoa, whatever his name is that plays as him, right? Salakia. So I mean, you literally got. Of course, what they'll do is they'll make Zeus look like the good guy and all that because he's fighting the evil, and that's the Greek theater. It's the same thing, same exact thing. Look, there go Apollo with the arrow, right? And there go literally the Green Lantern right there, right? That's your Apollo right there. And then you got, of course, the Hades and his army. They would equate it to Hades or to Moros, basically. You know what I'm saying?
But before the unity could synchronize, the defenders of Earth attacked and fought as one. Amazons alongside Atlanteans, Zeus and his son Ares alongside the guardians from the sky. A golden age of heroes fighting together to defend life and Earth.
So they whoop Darkseid's behind. You feel me? Like. What Darkseid the truth though came in just woo. Boy came and hit him with that axe, yo. That's crazy, son. All right, we get it, right? I think it's pretty obvious that that's what it's. I mean, it. How much more obvious do you need for them to literally put Zeus in there, right? And Ares and all of them. But that goes to show that yes, the DC universe, the Marvel universe, they take hints from those gods, those quote unquote false, those gods of Olympus and the Greco-Roman Empire and all that stuff. And of course, Norse mythology comes into play when you're talking about Thor and Loki and Odin and all them from the Marvel universe, right? So they take heed to all those things. All those things are nothing but a trap. Wonder Woman or Princess Diana is the princess of the Amazon. I mean, come on, bro. I mean, it's a wrap. You have the scriptures here telling you to put those gods away, to not let your children be deceived by them. But now you can go into it with the understanding of that's what they're trying to sway us to believe. Like, yeah, you could watch the movie for entertainment purposes, but now look at things with a biblical lens. You know what I'm saying? Look at things with a biblical lens and don't be swayed by them to worship them or to overly be enthusiastic about them. That's all I'm saying. It's lucky. Go ahead, sir.
Y'all already talked about Thor and Odin?
No, because we was talking more about the DC universe because the article said that it said what? It says I got you. No, we can do that. It says almost all of DC's heroes are modeled after Greek gods. Like you talking about Batman versus Superman, Hades versus Zeus. Like this, I was like, yo, that's crazy, son. Like,
it's crazy that Odin and Thor are actually like gods that people worship back in the day. You know what I mean? And Loki, the god of mischief. You know what I mean? Like they're actually like gods that people worship back in the day.
Yeah.
Even if you watch the movies, the Marvel the Avenger movies, Thor always says he's like, I am a god. Mm-hmm. He always says that. You know what I mean? He always says that like
another, and he smashes the cup of beer, right? Because he liked the beer.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. In fact, there was a new trailer just a few days ago that was released about the new Thor movie that's coming out. Where his girl, what's her name, Natalie Portman, she's gonna be like a female Thor or whatever. Like I'm sure that has something to do with the Greek mythology at some point too. But there's gonna be a female Thor. There's gonna be the woman that he raises up from Earth to be one of them. And so really what I'm just saying about that is basically that these customs have been so embedded in our society. That's why we got to get away from Easter, because again, that's worshiping Ishtar and her son Tammuz. That we said when we saw in the book of Ezekiel chapter 8 that them weeping for Tammuz for 40 days is the same thing as Catholicism when they celebrate Lent or when they sacrifice for Lent. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When they do all that goofy stuff for all these other gods and they're not following the God of the Bible and not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. So we'll end it on this. Give me Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. Right? What'd you get from the old Mexican restaurant? That's
all beef. No pork out.
Nah.
I can't tell you the last time I ate pork.
All right, Exodus chapter 20. Go ahead.
Years ago.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
And that's the thing. You should not put anything more important in this book. Because every time that you turn off these Isupk classes so you can go on Disney Plus and rewatch all the Marvel movies, you should be spending more time in the scriptures rather than catching up on all the Marvel movies. You know what I mean? Spend more effort into studying these precepts than some comic book about Batman and Robin and God knows what. You know what I'm talking about? Like Darkseid and all them. because yes, they're there for your entertainment. But the things you got to understand is that their power comes from the monetary gain that they get from having these franchises. And so they just come up with all sorts of franchises to get all of your funds. And before you know it, money's not circulating in the hood because you're not spending your money on fringe garments and gauntlets and war scarves and things that pertain to our culture that are going to keep money circulating in our communities. Instead, your money is going to these other nations that are continuing to leave their knees on our neck, because now you're supporting the Jewish community that owns the theaters, the Jewish community that owns the rap industry, because now you're living like the way they want you to live, where you're smoking weed and worshiping Baal and Tammuz and Ashtaroth without even realizing it. Satan's done embedded this in the culture of America so deep that it's right in your face. But now, after having a class like this class has been very heavy, but it's been here to show you just how in your face our enemy is with boasting his way of life and his heroes and his gods onto us and our children. And all these things distract us from building our kingdom, which is why the UPK says that that we are the home of the truth, and that if you are not in the ISUPK, then you are not in the truth, because you're most likely having put other gods before the Most High. Read verse 4.
Verse 4. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath.
And the earth beneath, go ahead.
Or that is in the water under the earth.
So remember when we were talking about in Ezekiel how they had portrayals of all manner of beasts and idols? Take down that picture of Aquaman that you have that is of the water under the earth. Get rid of that picture of Iron Man that you have on your wall that is something that is of anything that is in the heaven above, right? Take those idols down. Take them down, because those things are not benefiting our nation. Those things are benefiting their nation, and this is spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare just to turn on your TV. None of this is new. All the DC comic, all that stuff, that's been around for a long time. But the most important thing here that you got to take away from this is that we are not to make those things more important than this truth. We're never supposed to choose any of those things before this truth. Last scripture, we're going to Acts chapter 17 and verse 30. Acts chapter 17, verse 30. All right. And that's why, in the UPK, we always bring out these heavy, examples of things. I mean, we even showed you even in Metal Gear Solid that a Native American was talking about with Babylon and how English is taking over the world, and that that's what it's required for you to take part in the monetary gain of Babylon, right? We're showing you right here in damn like a DC Justice League movie that they done put Diana and Zeus and all this different stuff in your face just to make sure that you stay locked in to the heathenistic mindset of worshiping their deities without even realizing it, cheering for them rather than cheering for a black man to come out of the sky named Yahushua Mashiach to save his people from bondage. You understand? We're telling where you're at. Go ahead.
Acts chapter 17, verse 30. In the times of this ignorance, God winked at, but now commandeth all the men everywhere to repent.
Now what?
God commanded, but now commanded all the men everywhere to repent.
And that's the thing. We grew up in a society that had our people confused, and we didn't know the truth. We didn't know better. You know what I'm saying? Brothers grow up, they get tattoos. They may have dealt with the other women of the other nation. You may have celebrated Christmas in your past. But the scripture says in the time of your ignorance, God winked at, meaning he'd be like, I'm going to let that slide because you didn't know better. You know what I'm saying? But now you got the truth. Now you got the priests and prophets of the Most High showing you word for word in the Bible and also throughout history and how it coincides with what you see even today and how it correlates to what was going on thousands of years ago, that those same false gods that they've been pushing back then, They're still doing the same thing right now, right in your face, and they're trying to disguise it as Easter. They're trying to disguise it as Christmas. They're trying to disguise it as Superman and Thor. Maybe not so much disguising it as Thor. They're doing straight up stuff now. But what I'm trying to tell you is that these things that they've done all throughout history, they're going to continue to do, and it is up to us to no longer fall for those tricks, because that's what the devil does. Is he comes to this earth to sway us into living the way he wants us to live, which is unrighteously and cheering for him and his gods and his deities, and to commemorate his culture rather than our culture. You understand? And so read that verse one more time, Baba Kushad, and then we'll end it on that.
Acts 17, verse 30. In the times of this ignorance, God winked at, but now commanded all men everywhere to repent.
Now, men everywhere to repent, meaning go from those wicked ways and come back to the truth and follow through and keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and know what's going on and be able to identify the things that you see through a biblical lens, so that you no longer can be swayed into destruction by them. This is the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. Today, we slayed them Greek demons. We slayed the Passover, the Easter demon. We slayed them, utterly destroyed them. Okay, you go over this class, you write down these scriptures, you can do the same thing next year, because it's going to happen again. And for as long as until Yahushua returns, they're going to keep trying to push these things on us, and we're going to continue to destroy and utterly rebuke these wrong customs and point these things out, so that our children can grow up with the right mindset instead of wanting that dang idol that look like Thor. Feel me? I got the. do you want me to go ahead and take care of the announcement, sir?
I got it.
Okay. All right, and with that, I'm gonna pass the class over to Priest and Officer 500 Kabar for the security announcements.
Where's that?
Should be right here. So like, let me see. Yeah, it's right there.
This is the ISUPK security announcements. We're the ISUPK. Start out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she will get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers, the 18th chapter, verse 21, or Malachi, the 3rd chapter, verses 8 through 10. Ma'ashera means tenth in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the Treasury Department or a teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever the amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocations. Where's that? You had it yesterday. We usually high holy days.
Oh yeah, it's right there. I think that might be it right there.
There we go. Upcoming holy convocations. Feast of Unleavened Bread. The 15th day of the first month for 7 days. Starts Saturday, April 16th until Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Sundown. You can find this in Exodus, the 12th chapters, verses 17 through 20, and Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, verses 6 through 8. If anyone wants to become a trooper into the school, start wearing all black: boots, shirt, pants, headband, scarf. And that concludes the security announcements.
All right. All right, Sarah. We're going to turn face to east for the Lord's Prayer. We're going to say it in the Lashawan Kodash first, and then finish it off by translating it to English. Abanawa. Shabbat Shemayim. Kodash. Hayah. Shemka. Yahweh. Malakoska. Thaba'ah. Ratazaka. Hayah. Aisha. Ba'arataza. Kawa. Hayah. Bashamayim. Nathan Lanoa. Lacham. Kal,
Kal,
Yawam,
Yawam,
Wasalaklanao,
Wasalaknao,
Kabawathno,
Kawathno,
Kasalakno,
Kasalakno,
Kabawathino,
Kawathino,
Wala'a,
Walala,
Tabia'ano,
Tabi'ayano,
Banasaya 1,
Wanasaya 1,
Abal,
Abal,
Hawashino,
Shaino,
Mayan,
Mayan,
Rai,
Rai,
Kaya,
Kaya,
Laka,
Laka,
Hamalakwa,
Amalakwa,
Waha'ala,
Walala,
Wa'ata Para,
Wa'ata Pa'ara,
Fa'iwalamyo,
Walawalamium.
Aman.
Come on. Now we're going to do the Lord's Prayer in English. Our Father,
Our Father,
which art in heaven,
which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Yahweh,
Yahweh,
thy kingdom come.
thy kingdom come,
Thy will be done.
thy will be done
In earth.
in earth
As it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day
Our daily bread.
our daily bread,
And forgive us our debts.
and forgive us our debts
As we forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not
And lead us not
unto temptation.
unto temptation,
But deliver us
but deliver us
from evil.
from evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom,
And the power.
and the power,
And the glory.
and the glory,
Forever.
forever.
So be it.
So be it. All right. Men of Israel, we're going to turn face the brothers for one courtesy salute. Men of Israel, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Brakatham, Yadi Matah. Sar, turn and face the sisters for one courtesy salute. Men of Israel, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Hathan Ba'ashem Yahushai, Yadi Matah. Class dismissed.
Go ahead, Diddy.
Come on, sir.